Let's turn our attention now to the United States, and the last polling booths have closed in the New Hampshire primary. Donald Trump has taken an early lead. The race that will help decide who is the Republican nominee on the ballot is down to just the two contenders. Our Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen is live. And this is, there's no doubt about it, a critical race. Annalise, what are the early numbers suggesting?
Look, the early numbers are suggesting it's going to be a tight result, but a clear win for Donald Trump nonetheless. We've been on the ground talking to voters today, and it did seem very clear that Donald Trump had the upper hand. We're at a polling booth in Derry, New Hampshire. So this is the biggest polling booth in the state, and the doors have just closed. And so we're going to be able to watch the actual vote count taking place. Now, you can see those ballots there on the table, red for Republican, blue for Democrat. This is a state where you do vote in either, but they have a very high number of independents. That's what they were hoping would carry Nikki Haley over the line here. For her campaign, if she can't come close to Donald Trump here, it is going to be very hard to sustain her way all the way to South Carolina in a month's time, and then Super Tuesday in March. That's a lot of money that it takes to run campaigns that long, a lot of events, a lot of potential for things to go wrong, and especially when Donald Trump still has this dominant lead over the Republican Party, it is hard for a candidate like Nikki Haley to make ground. This is an extraordinary race already. The fact we're down to two major Republican candidates on the ballot at this point shows how strong Donald Trump's influence is. The opportunities for Nikki Haley to take that lead off Donald Trump are running out. And so we could be very close to solidifying a race again between Donald Trump and Joe Biden for the White House in November of this year. It's going to be, that means an election campaign unlike when we've ever seen before. Two former presidents going for it again. We won't see the traditional on-the-ground campaigning like we have before. And so this is why this kind of vote matters so much. We're seeing the results come through. A number of outlets in the US have already called it for Donald Trump, including Fox News, but we are waiting to see what that margin is. Anything within 10% is going to be spun by the Haley campaign as being a very sustainable push to get them through to at least Super Tuesday, and they're saying to the White House.
Annalise, there is a cohort, I know some that you've spoken to. We saw on air some of the voters, very strong Haley supporters that won't necessarily vote for Donald Trump. The question is it big enough to make Biden the front runner again? Because at the moment, the polls would suggest Trump has a slight edge.
And that is what the Haley campaign has been saying. When you look at those polls, she does much better against Joe Biden. But there's also the fact here that in New Hampshire, Joe Biden took himself off the ballot. He hasn't participated in Iowa. He didn't participate in New Hampshire. He wants to rewrite the calendar, and he said that he wants more diversity and representation. The fact is he's done quite poorly in these states, and he only got a foothold in 2020 in South Carolina. So there's a reason that they're skipping this, and he has done well despite all of that. But it's hard to run against an incumbent president. This is going to be a campaign unlike any other we've seen in modern history. And what we also need to remember is in the US, turnout matters. Generally, very few voters ever actually change their voter registrations. When we're looking at a state like New Hampshire, 40% of those who were registered to vote in this election were registered as independents. A lot of those would be Democrats who want to influence where the Republicans vote. That's why you're getting a more moderate outcome. They're probably going to cast a ballot Democrat when push comes to shove come November. So if you want to be competitive, that's where the draw lies. About 6% of voters decide not to come out when they normally do at a US election, and that decides how elections run way more than anyone changing their mind. People are pretty wedded to their political beliefs here, so generally you have to listen to how enthusiastic people are to decide if they're going to come out on election day. So that's why we're watching this all so very closely, and New Hampshire is more important this year than it's ever been in modern US history.
It really is, and so interesting to watch every step of this. Annalise, I know you'll be watching and staying tuned to the candidates as well. These are pictures from the Trump headquarters. He's been declared the winner now of the New Hampshire primary. Supporters awaiting his arrival. You see there on the big screen. Trump wins New Hampshire. It looks like we're headed for that repeat contest, Biden v. Trump.